Hey, love, before we jump in, I want to make you aware that Tools of Transformation is open as of now, and it holds all the exercises that I wish I would have known when starting on my spiritual journey, even before, because would I have known how much it helps my daily life to reset my nervous system, to release stress, release anger, to energetically make conversations go my way before I even have them, or what mirror work can do, my life would have been shifted. So I really invite you to check that out. Link is in the captions below. And now we jump straight into the episode to have another wonderful conversation about how to get to this point of empowerment, how other women did it, what tools they used, what perspective shifts they found for themselves, how they navigated their life to come back to their empowerment. Enjoy the episode. With me, and I'm really excited to dive deep into her work. But before, Kendra, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy sharing a bit about your work. We just touched on it, and I think it's so perfect that we're speaking today. So yeah, would love to give you a bit of space to introduce yourself first.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. One of my goals this year was to do a lot more networking and connecting. So when you reached out to me, you were like the third person, and I'm like, "Ah, this is just on a roll, and this is exactly in me and my element." And it's really interesting because I had really thought about, I had always had a podcast, and then my producer had passed away, and I kind of put it on the back burner just to move through the grieving process and decide how I wanted to proceed. And then we had the pandemic, and that was just not the time because everybody's life was all over the place with changes and whatever. And so this year I had planned to do, a rebuilding of a podcast. And then all of this guesting started happening. And I'm like, oh, good. This is I can use the time to create, but still be podcasting. And then I can launch when I'm ready. And there's not so much pressure. So this is so awesome. And thank you so much for having me. So I'm Kendra Walbaum, and I'm from Canada in the province of Saskatchewan. And I am a professional intuitive reader and a natural healer. So essentially, what that means is I was born with these abilities. A lot of people will have a near death experience or some traumatic happening that will skyrocket abilities, but I was born connected to them. We're all born with them and connected to them. It's just how we begin accessing them. Um, However, I grew up kind of in a family that was deeply ingrained in the Christian culture where we didn't really discuss things like that, and they were kind of seen as taboo. And my dad is a very powerful healer as well, but he didn't really talk about any of his things because, I mean, in his age of growing up, people were put in institutions when they said they were having those experiences, right? And so he hid himself for a long time. And so in my early 20s, my dad began to really suffer from hiding his authenticity and not really talking about his abilities. And him and I became closer, and we would have our closed door conversations about things. And that was at that time in supporting my dad through that, where I was like, okay, I can see where my life is headed if I don't really step into all that this is. And so I launched my business, and I started speaking about the things I know and the things, the things that I see differently. And so that's kind of what led me here. And one thing led to another. I met a lot of really cool people. I got some mentors, was offered a podcast spot by someone else who produced my first podcast. And yeah, and things just kept happening. And then one of my mentors was like, you're going to have a radio show. I just said to her, yeah, okay, whatever. And I did. And then she was like, you're going to write a book. And I'm like, that's never been a thing that was ever on my radar. And I did. And in the meanwhile, I was also living a very quote unquote average life. I went to college. I got formally trained. I was teaching. But a lot of people find this kind of funny because I'm trained in medical imaging. So I see through people all day long at work, but I actually see through people in my other line of work. So people always find that to be quite the connection. And so I actually just retired from corporate last August, and now I'm fully immersed in my spiritual business and really wanting to help people. We're going through such a time in the world and such a time of flux that knowing who you truly are and being okay with that and being willing to step into the scariness of following what it is you truly desire is so rewarding for me to see people have those moments of like, I think I just accessed real joy by doing that, even though it was scary. And that is honestly the thing that drives me and wants to wake up every day, because there is nothing greater than being so comfortable in who you are and what you have to offer the world, as opposed to being who people tell you you should be in the very, mapped out way you're supposed to do it. And the freedom. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I do and what my mission is here.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's so aligned. We just talked about that off record, that what you are writing your book about. I think you're almost finished.
The book is done. We're just in the editing, so I'll be in layout really soon. It is coming fast.
This is really so amazing. I smiled when you shared about like how, we try to resist our purpose, our soul's calling out of what we've been programmed with. And as you said, like, especially if there is heavier religious environment when we grow up, it's kind of like breaking out of that box, to say the least. And what we seem to like really have in common is this: why are we doing this? Is like the way you write your book is exactly why I do the podcast. Is this supporting people in this, you said so beautifully, in this flux and this like wobble where we have no idea what is happening, but things are changing, and there's like maybe questioning of what have I done so far. And like you said, with your dad mirroring back to you, like how your life could be if you don't follow your authenticity. I think that is something that actually happens to most of us in some intensity or another. And so many people don't have the belief in themselves or the tools at their hands to say, like, okay, well, regardless of how scary it is, I'm starting to follow that steps. I'm starting to come back to myself. I'm starting to follow my authentic expression and like decondition from whatever society has made me believe about myself or how I should be, and like really embrace the authentic self. To, yeah, it's scary, but you get a lot of confidence out of it, like you said. And I think sometimes we need that little like loving nudge, or that person that holds our hand through this. And yeah, so I think it's like the most important work right now, to help people believe in themselves again. Or maybe for first.
Yeah, and I think that the fear of disappointing people or disappointing yourself, but in reality, like, I always like to tell my client, my following, that fear is actually just excitement in disguise. It's so intense that your brain misjumbles the energetic messages because of the intensity of the excitement. You can feel how good that it would feel to have that. And then it decides, nope, too much, too fast. That's scary, right? And then people will say to me, but what do you mean? There are things you should be afraid of. And I'm like, yes, but the energy of fear and the energy of danger are very, very different. And learning how to identify the difference is actually what can help you to navigate into your authentic self. Some people will be, well, Kendra, I'm not a professional intuitive like you. How would I identify the energy? Everyone's body responds to energy in its own unique way, and I can teach you how to have body awareness and where your body receives the energy so that you can interpret it for yourself. It doesn't mean you're going to be a professional reader or whatever, but it can add to your tool belt your own intuitive compass that can always guide you for yourself. Most importantly, to know what is a yes for you, what is a no for you, what is quote unquote right, what is quote unquote bad. I don't use those terms in coaching for a lot of reasons. And I'll give a brief explanation, and that is right and wrong and good and bad. Something right or wrong for someone could actually be the opposite for someone else based on your life's experiences. Something good and bad could, my husband thinks a flat tire is the end of the world. And I'm like, wow, if that's the worst thing that could happen today, I would say, it's an easy fix. Get the spare out of the trunk, put it on. I mean, that's great. You're on a road trip. And he just thinks, And so I like to teach feel good and feel bad, because you know what feels good to you and you know what does not feel good to you. So feel good and not feel good are the terms I prefer. That way you're staying true to yourself. And as you grow, how something feels might change based on the new experiences you're creating by connecting deeper with yourself. And so people really need to understand that that's a big part of being authentic, is learning how to identify what actually belongs to yours or what you've picked up along the way in your conditioning.
Which is so big on its own, isn't it? This like becoming aware that, like you said, there is not this one truth or this one right way to do whatever, but it's like there's your right way for that moment, which could change. It's like it's a moment, person to person decision, and it doesn't even matter how close you are to another one. Like you mentioned, your husband, it could be like a total different right or wrong for the both of you. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think, well, most of us haven't been taught that in our upbringing. So we kind of like need to decondition from this like black and white way of thinking. And when we do so, that's like one big step to really reconnecting with our body and saying, how does it feel for me? How does fear feel for me? How does excitement actually feel for me? And then we can kind of learn to learn our own language, basically learn the language of our body, so that we can really make the decisions that are in alignment for us and not for something that someone else made up however much time ago. And I feel like getting the awareness is really, really important. And also when you touched upon, which I would have loved to know as a 14-year-old, like really shy girl, is this, what is fear and what is danger? Because here in Europe, I can say, like where I live, we have been conditioned to, if there's fear, you don't go there. Never. This is dangerous. Your body kind of, the fear has a job. Yes, of course it has. But like what we have been learned to interpret it like is like, there's fear, there's danger, you don't go there. Like go the opposite way. And now I would strongly disagree for myself to say, like, normally where fear is, there's a treasure behind it, but it took me a long time, and I still like, stumble back sometimes to say like, oh, there's fear, ooh, and my body is kind of like, no. And this like kind of gracefully guiding yourself to look at that fear and see what it is that it wants to tell you, because normally it's like a portal and behind it are the most amazing things, but it's a different thing than being in actual danger physically. It's a different thing. And our body kind of perceives it as the same, but it's not the same. And that awareness switch.
Well, yeah, and what people need to understand too is that your body receives energy before your brain does, because your brain interprets the feelings of your body because it's all coming in outward. And so I always tell people that your body awareness is your biggest gateway to being in alignment and staying on your path of choice, because your brain has been conditioned that certain feelings, certain reactions of your body mean certain things. But in all honesty, that might not be true for you personally. Those truths that were instilled in you about how your body reacts were someone else's truth passed down to you based on their experiences. And so using our aura, and like what I like to tell people is if you're in an environment that is not feel good with people who are, maybe vibrating at a lower vibration, and a lower vibration and a higher vibration does not make anyone better than anyone else. It just means the way they access information, the way they function is different. It has no bearing on anyone being better than anyone. And it also has bearing on the types of experiences you will have in life. So, it's kind of like that saying, misery loves company, happiness, attracts more happiness. It's that type of thing. So if you see a group of people who are all experiencing the same types of experiences, regardless of what they are, they're probably all vibrating at the same energy. And that doesn't make them better or worse than anybody else or their experiences. It's just that their vibration is at that level. And so when you enter some space where your vibration or your aura is not the allotted amount expanded from your body, things hit you more intensely, which then causes you to shut down, not be able to function, have not feel good experiences inside yourself that might not actually make sense to what is happening in your outer world. And that's because it impacts your body so hard. So I like to equate this to, and I teach it as someone wearing a bulletproof vest. If they wear a vest and get shot and the vest does its job because it was put on properly in the proper places and has gone through all the proper QA checks, they will feel the impact of it. They may have a little bit of bruise, but they are going to be able to get up and walk away and still be fully functional for the rest of the day. When our aura is expanded properly, it filters not feel good energy. So it is reducing the impact by the time it hits our body, allowing us to manage and access that information in a way that is manageable for us. When our aura is shrunk, then the filter is smaller. So then it can't slow it down as much. And when it hits our body, it impacts hard and it causes chaos because it's an overload for our brain to process and for us to really pay attention and interpret what is for us or not for us. And so learning about how to use your aura or your personal energetic field, whatever you would like to call it, is super important and key to working on body awareness. And what people deem personal space is actually that amount of space that your aura should be expanded in order to be able to process properly. So yes, your body takes a hit. Your body is so strong. And I don't think people are grateful enough of their bodies and what they actually do beyond what we're taught. There's, basic taught. Like when you dive into spiritual work, you learn things, but these are things we should be taught as young people because they help us to navigate life. Like I really truly believe we should be teaching these sorts of things in school, how to learn your personal truths. There's a lot of talk in the education world, a lot of preaching, be your own person, but no one actually teaches you how to do that. No one actually gives you good, credible information or steps.
I thank you from the depth of my heart that you bring that up because that's one of my big whys is that I want to bring that kind of information, meditation, going inwards, connecting to your guidance, basic energy work to schools. That's like, it's a big thing, but that's one of my whys because I think like how would a world be if we would learn that in schools compared to the 515 math or history class? If that will be part of our upbringing, the world will be a different one and the empowerment unimaginable. Because all these tools that we're talking about, all these tools that you've briefly touched on before we hit record that you share in your book or that I am using, which might be like quite similar or overlapping to some point. For me, like they all touch base on empowerment. because they bring us back to, I can do something, not even about that situation, but also in preventing that from even happening. Like you so beautifully shared with the example of the bulletproof vest. It's not to like protect ourselves so that things come to us, but kind of like setting the energetic bridge to say like, okay, that's what I want to experience. That's how I want to strengthen myself, not to keep everyone outside, but like to stay in my own energetic field, to be myself and to not take on all these masks. And I think that is something that, if done by a majority of people, would shift our world so completely. And it's quite easy, but so few of us know and have like really integrated whatever. But actually doing it, making it a daily practice, making it part of your life, could change your life so much. And still I see so many people no, because again, programming. And so that's, I think, what makes it so valuable to like really have mentors and guides on our hands that can help us navigate through that fear, through that programming, actually using what empowers us. So we can come out of that old little box we've been put in, or we put ourselves in, however you want to frame it.
Yeah, 100%. And I just, we look at how bullying has like skyrocketed in the last 10 years. And I mean, I now homeschool my son because I can't imagine how he was feeling, because that never happened to me. But I can certainly, being intuitive and very in tune to energy, feel the things he is going through. And it's terrible. But I was so frankly annoyed and sick of navigating the daily conversations with the school and nothing changing, and actually being able to feel that people were being dismissive of what was happening. And people are very judgmental of homeschooling, but like, nobody on this planet is more qualified to love my child than me. And for me to continue to put my child in that environment, and this isn't an attack on anyone where you don't have the options and you have to continue to do the schooling. Those are things we got to work through in life. But we had the option to not put him there, and do any more damage at home than would have been done there, because I'm able to instill confidence. Maybe the academia he's learning is different, but if he leaves my home with the confidence and the belief in himself, he will be able to do anything afterwards. Him learning his multiplication and division skills. Don't worry, we're teaching all those things. I'm actually a retired college instructor, so education is not beyond me. But I'm just saying, if your child is feeling unloved for the majority of the day in the environment they are in, it is doing a lot of damage. And so my response to people who judge on the homeschooling thing is, have your opinion. You're welcome to it, but no one's more qualified to love my child than me. And that's what I want my child to leave at the end of the day, knowing is that my mom has my, right?
I 100% agree with you that I think that's another thing that we have been told, that has kind of emerged societally, that like we need to give our children away so that they can learn about life and then like be good workers or whatever is needed, basically. But in this kind of plan, the mental and emotional and therefore also physical health of the child, it's not talked about. So it doesn't mean that school is bad or school is bad for everyone, but like children are not feeling good in there. Who could be better at making your child comfortable and teaching them the basic skills that they need? And from there on, like you said, if your child is confident, it's feeling loved, it's feeling seen, it can be healthy from the inside out. And with that, it's equipped enough to like do everything that he or she wants, because we have this like intrinsic motivation. We have this like in this day and age that we live in. So there's actually no shortage of nothing except for the basic emotional guidance that the family can give the best. And I think that the fear that comes up around homeschooling, which is not allowed in Germany, by the way.
I know it is, and I was just going to say it's not allowed there, is it?
Like, yeah, well, but that's a topic for another day.
Well, yeah, that's a deep dive topic.
But that is like, I think it's just based again on fear and on the fear of like, how would you sustain your life afterwards and all these things, but it's based on lack mentality. And that in its grounding energy is not what I want to base any decision on. So when we're again back circling to the body awareness and saying, what does feel good most? And that's the only thing that actually matters for your decision-making process, or should not the logic so much.
Yeah, and like I said, it's no judgment on other families and what they choose for their children, because I trust that you're doing what's best for you, your children, and your family, because that's your journey. And I'm staying in my own lane because I got my own things going on, right? And I think that that's my other biggest thing as being a mentor. And it's one of the things that is often mentioned in my testimonials. And it's not to toot my own horn, but it is one of the things that I sell to my clients. Sell is not money wise, but I promise you, it doesn't matter what we discuss. This is a judgment-free zone. And I've heard it all over the years, all of it, every single thing anyone can imagine. I've heard it all. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you navigate why you're feeling the way you are. I'm here to teach you techniques to help you identify what an issue is when you know there is one, but you don't even know what it is. And I'm here to support you in not being afraid to tell your family you've decided Christmas dinner tradition is not for you anymore. And you know it's going to upset and ruffle a lot of feathers. I'm here to be that person that is telling you it's okay to do that if it does not feel good for you to participate.
Yeah, I think that's the most powerful thing that we can do for anyone is like supporting them on their journey, whatever that is. And maybe you would do totally different or maybe not. It actually doesn't matter. Right? Staying there, holding the space until the person can believe in themselves enough to do that alone. I think it's the most important work we can give to our children, as we talked before, but also to anyone else, like a healing space, and like giving back to you your power, the remembrance that your power is actually yours and you can call it back and you can do however you want, with or without Christmas tradition, with or without schooling in the classical way. It's totally your decision and not someone else's. And that is still a concept that I don't see so many people talk about, although I think it should be in every newspaper all around the world every day, but it isn't. So one of the biggest things we can do in our life, because essentially what matters to you when you're 95 years old on your last day, what is really important, that you followed your truth, you followed your heart, you did whatever is you came here for, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's something we need to be asking ourselves is, how do I want to be remembered? What legacy am I leaving here? What imprint am I leaving? You're leaving an energetic imprint here. How do you want that energy to feel to others when your name comes up, right? And my guides really like that. I just got full body chills. They're almost like, yeah, just keep talking. My guides are so funny. My one guide is like, oh, we have a download for you. So after this, I can tell you I'm probably going to do some automatic writing and some channeling. I can just see another book streaming out of this podcast.
Very good. I'm going to producing more.
Yeah. And I'll put that in. Thank you, Anna, for prompting the creation of this book. But yeah, so, I think it's important that we just really honor each other and reminding each other, what is it? How do you want to be remembered? And it's not about caring what other people think. It's if you, when you pass away, come back and watch your journey regardless of quote unquote mistakes or things you wish you had never done, are you happy with the way you navigated after doing those things afterward? Are you happy with the growth? Would someone say they made this choice, but then this big, amazing thing came out of it and they learned right? So, and I think that's the other thing too is when we do things that have not feel good consequences, so much shame is put on us instead of what have you learned from this? What don't you want to repeat? Where would you like to go next? If this hadn't happened, where would you go? Okay, so what can we do to get there? Right? Instead of the blame and the shame and the guilt we aren't asking forward moving questions. We're asking questions and making statements that are keeping people stuck and small. And so that unwavering support without judgment is key.
It's I feel like this non-judgmental approach is what can liberate so much power and energy and like help people remember so much about themselves that they have kind of lost somewhere along the way. And it still is somewhere, but like re-accessing this confidence, this inner knowing of what to do, this trust in ourselves is like the essential thing to leave the imprint, like you so beautifully said, that we are here to leave and to inspire the people with our authenticity and not with staying in the lane that someone else chose for us, or that society kind of laid out for us depending on where we live and how we look and, the gender and all that stuff. It's like really going into the uniqueness of the soul. And I would love to shortly touch upon your book, because I think it ties like really beautifully in there. And you shared a bit before about the tools that you're talking in there. So I think that would be amazing if you can like share a bit about it.
Okay. Off record, Anna and I were chatting before we popped on here, and we were discussing that. I was just mentioning my book. I don't even remember how it came up. Oh, you were talking about tools and we were just talking about, the vision for your podcast and what you hope it does. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you're talking about my book, because it's essentially what my book is supposed to do for people. So my book is called Talking with the Universe, a simple guide to creating your ultimate connection. And my book was based off of some workshops that I was running previous to the pandemic. And I was like, not everybody has the funds to access me in a personal way. And I didn't even charge a lot of money, but still I wanted this to be accessible and affordable for anyone, for a place to start. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write this book. And a mentor told me about 10 years ago I was going to write a book, and I thought she was crazy. That was never on my radar. And so anyways, I started to write this book, and when you're moving forward and trying to do something that's going to change, you're going to get a lot of resistance from lower vibrational energies. Just to tell you a bit about that and how it ties into my book, I signed a publishing deal. A month later, my 21-year-old sister passed away unexpectedly. The same day, I found out I was pregnant with a child that I was told I would never have. So I had already raised 7 children that were non-biologically mine, and I only had a 12-year-old left at home. And I was just getting my life back. And then here I am, 40, gonna have a baby. Because, we had different life plans, but that's not what was gonna happen. And then I was at a very challenging pregnancy where I was quite ill. Then a few months later, my father-in-law passed away. And I spent a lot of time in and out of the hospital. Then I had my baby. I had a lot of complications. So my book kept getting pushed back. Right? And my mentor said to me, yes, Kendra, because good things are going to come from this. It's going to create change. And, there are energies that don't want that change to happen. And she said, but just trust in the timing, right? So finally, when things had settled down this past fall, I said to my husband in November, I am going to have this book completed by the end of January and to my publisher before they decide to throw me off the face of the planet and tell me to take a hike 4 years later. And I did. I worked really hard and got it done. It was a couple weeks late just because I was piecing things together. And then I asked a girl to help me just to make sure we're in the right order. And when I submitted,
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Thank you so much for sharing that. And oh, I'm so excited. Please let me know when it's out. I feel it's, like you said, good things often have a very resisting path unfolding because there's this, energy of preventing something that is empowering to happen and going through that and still holding yourself through that and finishing it, even though all the challenges and the long time span it took is in itself amazing. And I feel it will do amazing things to the people who read it. So that is deeply exciting and so great you did. I thank you. I could talk on with you for hours. So maybe we're doing a part 2 at some time. That would be so nice when it happens. I would love that. Yes, most definitely we will. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, the wisdom, and the work you do, which I said to you before, it's so important. And I'm so grateful to know that you do it. We all do that around. Like, I always visualize like all these wonderful people on the planet doing their job and in like others. It's just like I get full body chills when I talk about it. So thank you for that. Thank you for coming on. And yeah, we will repeat that hopefully very soon.